In the quiet hours of a January evening in 1915, in a village just outside London, a child was born who would one day become a bridge between two worlds, a translator of ancient wisdom for modern minds, a voice that would carry the profound teachings of the East across the vast ocean to the West. His name was Alan Wilson Watts, and his journey would be one of endless curiosity, deep contemplation, and a lifelong fascination with the great mystery of existence itself. Imagine, if you will, the England of Alan's childhood. The gentle mist rolling across the countryside, the sound of church bells in the distance, the quiet, orderly world of early 20th century Britain, where tradition ran deep and the rhythms of life moved with a certain predictable grace. Young Alan grew up in this world, in the village of Chislehurst, in a comfortable middle-class home where his mother tended the garden and his father commuted to the city for work at the Michelin Tire Company. But even as a boy, Alan sensed something beyond the ordinary, something shimmering just beneath the surface of everyday life. He would spend hours wandering the countryside, observing the patterns in nature, the way light filtered through leaves, the intricate designs of flowers, the mysterious dance of insects and birds. There was a rhythm to it all, a kind of music that seemed to speak of something deeper, something that the world around him rarely acknowledged. His parents, though loving, were conventional in their outlook. They raised Alan in the Church of England, and he attended the local King's School in Canterbury, where he studied Latin and Greek, mathematics and history. But it was not in these traditional subjects that young Alan found his deepest fascination. No, it was in something far more exotic, far more mysterious, something that would shape the entire trajectory of his life. At the tender age of 11 or 12, Alan discovered a magazine in a bookshop, a publication about Buddhism. And there, on those pages, he encountered ideas that seemed to resonate with something deep within him. Ideas about the nature of consciousness, about the interconnectedness of all things, about a way of seeing the world that was utterly different from everything he had been taught. It was as if a door had opened in his mind, revealing a vast landscape he had somehow always known was there, waiting to be explored. From that moment on, Alan's path was set. He began to read everything he could find about Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism. These ancient traditions spoke to him in a language that felt more true, more alive than the religious teachings of his childhood. He would spend hours in libraries, losing himself in texts about Zen meditation and the Tao Te Ching, about the nature of reality and the illusion of the separate self. And so we begin our journey with this young seeker, this curious soul who stood with one foot in the ordered world of the West and one foot reaching toward the mysterious wisdom of the East. A boy who would grow into a man capable of translating the deepest truths of ancient philosophy into words that modern minds could understand. A voice that would soothe and challenge, enlighten and comfort for generations to come. Let us follow him now, gently, slowly, as his path unfolds before us like a river finding its way to the sea. As Alan moved through his teenage years, his fascination with Eastern thought only deepened and grew stronger, like roots reaching down into fertile soil. He joined the Buddhist lodge in London when he was just 16 years old. Imagine that. A young English schoolboy in the 1930s, sitting in meditation with others who shared his hunger for understanding, his yearning to grasp the fundamental nature of reality. The Buddhist lodge was led by Christmas Humphreys, a respected barrister and devoted Buddhist, and it was there that Alan found his first real community of fellow seekers. They would meet regularly to discuss the teachings of the Buddha, to practice meditation, to explore the sutras and the commentaries that had been passed down through centuries. For Alan, these gatherings were like water to a thirsty traveler. They nourished something in him that had been longing for recognition and expression. During these formative years, Alan also discovered the writings of D.T. Suzuki, the Japanese scholar who had done so much to introduce Zen Buddhism to the Western world. Suzuki's books opened yet another door for Alan. They revealed the spontaneous, paradoxical nature of Zen, the way it pointed beyond words and concepts to direct experience. Alan was captivated by the Zen koans, those mysterious riddles that seemed to break the mind free from its habitual patterns. What is the sound of one hand clapping? What was your original face before your parents were born? These questions delighted him, challenged him, drew him deeper into the mystery. But life, as it does, presented its practical demands. Alan's family expected him to pursue a respectable career, and so, after finishing his secondary education, he found himself working at a bank in London. Can you imagine it? This young mystic, this seeker of ultimate truth, sitting at a desk, processing transactions, counting money, going through the motions of conventional employment. It couldn't last, of course. His heart was elsewhere. His mind was occupied with questions far removed from the business of banking. And so, after a time, Alan made a bold decision. He would dedicate himself more fully to his spiritual interests. He left the bank and enrolled at the School of Economic Science. But more importantly, he deepened his involvement with the Buddhist Lodge, eventually taking on editorial responsibilities for their journal, Buddhism in England. He was still a young man, barely out of his teens, and yet he was already beginning to find his voice, already beginning to articulate the insights that would later reach millions. It was during this period that Alan wrote his first book, The Spirit of Zen, published in 1936 when he was just 21 years old. 21. So young, and yet already attempting to distill and convey the essence of a profound spiritual tradition to Western readers. The book was well received, and it established Alan as a promising young writer and thinker, someone capable of bridging the gap between Eastern wisdom and Western understanding. But Alan's journey was far from complete. In fact, it was only just beginning. Life had many more lessons to teach him, many more experiences to shape and refine his understanding. And always, always there was that fundamental question pulling at him, inviting him deeper into the exploration of consciousness, identity, and the nature of existence itself. Who am I? What is this awareness that seems to be looking out through my eyes? Where does the boundary between self and world truly lie? These questions hummed quietly in the background of his life, like a constant, gentle vibration, waiting for the right moment to be fully explored. The turning of the decades brought significant change to Alan Watts's life, as it so often does for all of us. In 1938, at the age of 23, Alan made a momentous decision. He would leave England and travel to the United States. It was a journey across more than just an ocean. It was a journey into a new world, a new culture, a new phase of his life's unfolding. He settled first in New York, and it was there that he married Eleanor Everett, an American woman whose mother, Ruth Fuller Everett, was herself deeply involved in Zen Buddhism. Through this connection, Alan found himself drawn even more intimately into the world of Zen practice. Ruth would later become one of the first Westerners to be ordained as a Zen priest, and her influence on Alan during these years was profound and lasting. But then came another unexpected turn in Alan's path. Despite his deep commitment to Eastern philosophy, despite his years of Buddhist study and practice, Alan decided to pursue formal training in Christian theology. Perhaps it seems contradictory at first glance. Why would someone so devoted to Buddhism enter a Christian seminary? But for Alan, it was not a contradiction at all. He was curious about all expressions of spiritual truth. He wanted to understand the common threads that ran through different traditions. He wanted to explore the mystical dimensions of Christianity that often lay hidden beneath its dogmatic surface. And so Alan enrolled at the Seabury Western Theological Seminary in Evanston, Illinois. He studied the Bible, the Church Fathers, the history of Christian thought. He learned Greek and Hebrew so he could read the sacred texts in their original languages. And in 1945, he was ordained as an Episcopal priest. For the next 5 years, Alan served as a chaplain at Northwestern University, delivering sermons, counseling students, performing the rituals and duties of a Christian minister. But even as he fulfilled these roles, something was stirring within him, a growing sense that he could not remain confined within the boundaries of institutional religion, no matter how beautiful or meaningful its traditions might be. The forms and structures began to feel limiting. The dogmas and doctrines seemed to obscure rather than reveal the direct experience of the sacred that he sought. Alan's understanding had expanded too far. He had tasted too many different perspectives. He could no longer pour the vastness of his vision into the container of a single religious tradition. In 1950, Alan made another bold decision. He left the priesthood. It was a difficult choice, one that brought uncertainty and criticism, but it was necessary for his continued growth and authenticity. He could not pretend to believe things he did not believe. He could not continue to represent an institution whose exclusive claims to truth he could no longer accept. And so he stepped away, once again becoming a seeker without official affiliation, a wanderer in the landscape of consciousness. Alan moved to California, to the San Francisco Bay Area, where a new chapter of his life would unfold. Here, in this vibrant, creative region, he would find his true calling, not as a priest, not as a formal religious teacher, but as a lecturer, a writer, a communicator of ideas. He would speak to anyone who would listen, in living rooms and lecture halls, on radio programs, and eventually on television, sharing his unique synthesis of Eastern and Western wisdom, his playful yet profound insights into the nature of existence. California in the 1950s and 60s was a place of cultural fermentation, of questioning and experimentation, and Alan Watts found himself right at the heart of it all. His voice, warm and engaging, his ideas, challenging yet accessible, resonated with a growing audience of seekers, questioners, and rebels who were looking for alternatives to the conventional wisdom of their time. And Alan was ready. All of his experiences, all of his studies, all of his wanderings had prepared him for this moment, this opportunity to share what he had learned with a world hungry for new ways of seeing. In the gentle hills of Sausalito, just across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco, Alan Watts made his home. A houseboat floating on the water, rocking softly with the tides, a perfect metaphor for his philosophy of flowing with life rather than resisting it. From this floating home, he would embark each day on his work of translating the ineffable into words, of pointing toward truths that lay beyond language. Alan's lectures became legendary. He had a gift, you see, a rare ability to take the most complex philosophical concepts and make them accessible, even entertaining, without diminishing their depth or profundity. His voice was rich and warm, with a slight British accent that lent an air of authority and charm. He spoke in long, flowing sentences that seemed to mirror the very processes of consciousness he was describing. One thought flowing naturally into the next, ideas building and circling and returning, creating a kind of verbal music that was itself a meditation. He spoke of the Tao, the way of nature, the pathless path that cannot be spoken but can only be experienced. He spoke of Zen, with its sudden insights and its refusal to be pinned down by concepts. He spoke of the Hindu understanding of Atman and Brahman, the individual self and the universal self that are ultimately one and the same. And he wove these ancient teachings together with insights from modern science, from psychology, from his own direct observation of life. People would gather in halls and auditoriums to hear him speak, sitting in rapt attention as his words washed over them like waves. And then, as recording technology advanced, his lectures were captured on tape and later on record albums, allowing his voice to reach far beyond those who could attend in person. Thousands, then tens of thousands, then millions would eventually hear Alan Watts speak, would be introduced through him to ways of thinking that challenged the very foundations of their understanding of self and world. But Alan was not just a lecturer, he was also a prolific writer. Throughout the 1950s and 60s and into the 70s, he published book after book, each one exploring different facets of the same fundamental insights. The Way of Zen, Nature, Man and Woman, the book, On the Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are, The Wisdom of Insecurity, each title pointing towards some aspect of the great mystery, each book an invitation to question what we take for granted, to look more deeply at the assumptions that shape our experience. His writing, like his speaking, had a distinctive quality. It was clear and accessible, yet it never talked down to the reader. Alan respected his audience's intelligence while also maintaining a sense of playfulness and humor. He understood that the spiritual quest doesn't have to be solemn and heavy, that there is joy and lightness in seeing through the illusions that bind us, that awakening can be accompanied by laughter as well as by tears. Alan lived fully, passionately, sometimes controversially. He married 3 times, fathered 7 children, struggled with alcohol, engaged with the counterculture, explored consciousness through various means. He was not a saint or a guru in the traditional sense. He was a human being, complex and flawed, honest about his struggles and his questions, and perhaps this too was part of his gift. He did not speak from a place of claimed perfection, but from the midst of life, from the ongoing process of discovery and understanding. He had friends and colleagues from many worlds. Poets like Gary Snyder, psychologists like Abraham Maslow, mythologists like Joseph Campbell. He was part of a broader movement of thinkers and teachers who were bringing new perspectives to Western culture, who were helping to expand the boundaries of what was considered acceptable to think and say and explore. And through it all, Alan remained uniquely himself. A bridge builder, a translator, a voice calling us to wake up from the dream of separation and recognize our fundamental unity with all that is. As the years passed and Alan Watts moved through his 50s and into his 60s, his understanding continued to deepen and mature, like wine aging in a barrel, becoming richer and more complex with time. He had lived so much, experienced so much, explored so many different paths and perspectives, and all of it had contributed to a vision of existence that was both profound and refreshingly simple. He came to see more and more clearly that the fundamental human problem was one of mistaken identity. We think we are separate individuals, isolated egos, locked inside our skin and peering out at a world that is fundamentally other than ourselves. And from this basic misperception, all our suffering and anxiety and alienation flow. We feel alone, disconnected, in competition with others for resources and recognition and love. We try desperately to secure ourselves, to make ourselves permanent, to defend our boundaries against the threatening chaos of the world. But what if, Alan asked, this sense of being a separate self is actually an illusion? What if it's a trick of language, a habit of thought, a cultural conditioning rather than an ultimate truth? What if the boundary between self and other is not as solid and real as it appears? What if we are not, in fact, separate entities at all, but rather expressions of a single, unified field of existence, like waves arising from an ocean that was never really divided in the first place? This was Alan's great gift to the world. This simple but revolutionary invitation to question the most basic assumption we make about ourselves. He didn't ask us to believe anything on faith. He asked us to look, to observe, to see for ourselves whether this sense of being a separate, isolated self could actually be found when we searched for it honestly and directly. And he suggested that if we looked carefully enough, we might discover something amazing, that the observer and the observed are not two but one, that consciousness is not something we possess, but something we are, that we are not in the universe, but rather the universe is expressing itself as us. Alan Watts died in his sleep on November 16, 1973, at the age of 58, in his cabin in the hills above Muir Woods. It was too soon, many thought. He had so much more to say, so much more to share. And yet, in another sense, his work was complete. He had said what he needed to say, had pointed as clearly as words can point toward the truth that lies beyond words. His voice had been recorded, his books had been written, his ideas had been planted like seeds in countless minds where they would continue to grow and flourish. Even now, decades after his death, Alan Watts continues to speak to new generations. His recorded lectures circulate on the internet. His books remain in print. His ideas continue to inspire and challenge and comfort those who encounter them. He remains a bridge between East and West, a translator of ancient wisdom into modern language, a friendly voice inviting us to question our assumptions and discover who we really are beneath the layers of conditioning and belief. And so we honor him tonight. This curious boy from England who became a priest and then left the priesthood. This scholar and seeker who made the great wisdom traditions accessible to ordinary people. This flawed and fully human teacher who never claimed to have all the answers, but who asked the most important questions with humor and grace and profound insight. As we prepare to explore his ideas more deeply in the hours to come, let us rest for a moment in appreciation of this remarkable life, this journey from east to west, from tradition to innovation, from confusion to clarity, a journey that mirrors in so many ways the journey we each must make in our own lives, the journey from the illusion of separation to the recognition of our fundamental unity with all that is and all that ever will be, all flowing together, all one. And so we arrive at the heart of Alan Watts's teaching, the gentle revelation that changed so many lives, the insight that what we call the self, this seemingly solid, separate entity we carry through our days, is, in fact, an illusion, a persistent fiction, a story we've been telling ourselves for so long that we've forgotten it's a story at all. Now, this idea may seem strange at first, perhaps even unsettling, but rest assured we'll explore it gently, slowly, allowing each concept to settle like autumn leaves finding their place on still water. Watts observed that from the moment we begin to learn language, from our earliest days as children, we're taught to divide the world, to separate things into categories, into names. This is me, we learn to say, and that is not me. This is my hand, my body, my thoughts, and everything else is other, separate, outside. And gradually, through this process of naming and claiming, we construct an imaginary boundary, a line drawn across the seamless fabric of existence. On this side, we say, is the self, the I, the observer, the thinker, the experiencer. And on that side is everything else, the world, the environment, the stage upon which the self performs its daily drama. But Watts asks us to consider, where exactly is this boundary? Where does the self truly end and the world begin? If we look carefully, really carefully, with patient, gentle attention, we find that this line is not nearly as clear as we thought. Consider your body for a moment. You think of it as yours, as part of yourself. But your body is constantly exchanging matter and energy with its environment. Every breath draws in air that was, just moments ago, part of the outside world. Every meal transforms the not-self into the self. Your body is, in Watts' words, more like a whirlpool in a stream than a separate object, a temporary pattern in the continuous flow of the universe, appearing distinct, yes, but never truly separate from the water that creates it. The whirlpool exists because of the stream. It is the stream arranged in a particular way for a particular time, and so too with you, with all of us. We are patterns in the flow of existence, waves in the ocean of being. And the boundary we draw around ourselves is arbitrary, conventional, useful perhaps for practical purposes, but not ultimately real. Now let this thought settle gently. There's no need to grasp it or struggle with it. Simply let it rest in your awareness like a smooth stone in your palm, feeling its weight, its presence, as we continue our gentle exploration. Language, Watts tells us, plays such a crucial role in creating this illusion, this sense of being a separate self isolated inside a bag of skin. You see, language is a magnificent tool. It allows us to think, to plan, to communicate complex ideas. But it has a subtle trick, a hidden cost. Language works by dividing things, by creating distinctions. It takes the seamless, flowing experience of reality and cuts it up into pieces, into subjects and objects, into nouns that seem to represent separate, solid things. We say, I see the tree, and immediately the sentence creates a structure, an I that is separate from a tree, an observer separate from the observed. But the actual experience, the raw, direct experience before language touches it, is not divided this way. There is simply seeing, a unified happening in which the perceiver and the perceived arise together, inseparable as the two sides of a single coin. Watts often pointed out that we've become hypnotized by our own grammar. We speak of I think as if there were a thinker separate from the thoughts. But can you find this thinker if you look carefully? If you observe your thoughts gently, without grasping, you notice that thoughts simply arise. They appear in consciousness like clouds appearing in the sky. There's no separate entity manufacturing them, no little controller pulling the levers behind the scenes. The thoughts think themselves, or rather thinking happens as a natural process like breathing, like the beating of your heart. And yet we claim ownership. We say, my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences, as if there were a separate self possessing them. But this possessor is itself just another thought, just another appearance in the field of consciousness. Can you feel how this realization brings a certain lightness, a certain ease? When we begin to see through the fiction of the separate self, there's less to defend, less to protect, less to worry about. The constant effort of maintaining this imaginary boundary, of shoring up the ego against a threatening world, begins to relax, to soften, like a clenched fist slowly opening. And in this opening, paradoxically, we don't lose ourselves, we find ourselves. Or rather, we find what we truly are, not separate fragments, but integral expressions of the whole. Each of us a unique perspective through which the universe experiences itself. Think of your eyes for a moment. They see the world, yes, but they cannot see themselves, not directly. They would need a mirror, another perspective. And consciousness is like this too. The universe through you opens eyes and looks at itself. You are not in the universe as a marble is in a box. You are something the universe is doing, here, now, in this specific location, with this specific perspective. And when this is truly understood, not just intellectually, but felt, experienced, there comes a profound shift, a sense of coming home, of relaxing into reality as it is. Let these ideas wash over you now, like gentle waves, no need to hold them or analyze them. Simply feel their rhythm, their flow as we move deeper still. The culture we're born into. Watts reminds us, reinforces this illusion of separation at every turn. From earliest childhood, we're taught a story about who we are, a story of the isolated individual, the independent self that must make its way in a world of other separate selves. We learn competition before cooperation. We learn to compare ourselves, to measure our worth against others, to feel that we must prove ourselves, achieve, acquire, accomplish, to justify our existence in a universe that seems indifferent or even hostile. This is what Watts called the skin-encapsulated ego, the feeling that I am only this body, only these thoughts, only these memories and experiences trapped inside, looking out at a world that is foreign, separate, other. And this feeling, this deep conviction of separation is the root of so much of our suffering, so much of our anxiety and fear. When we believe ourselves to be separate, isolated individuals, then death becomes terrifying, the ultimate threat to this precious, vulnerable self. Other people become potential competitors, threats to our security. Even our own thoughts and feelings can seem like enemies when they don't conform to who we think we should be. The separate self must be constantly vigilant, constantly defending its territory, maintaining its boundaries, protecting itself against a dangerous world. It's exhausting, isn't it? This constant effort to be someone, to maintain an image, to control our experience, to make sure we're safe, successful, approved of, loved, and yet we've been doing it for so long, so automatically that we don't even realize there might be another way, that the very premise might be mistaken. Watts invites us to consider that this sense of separation is learned. It's cultural conditioning, a set of assumptions we've absorbed so deeply that they feel like reality itself. But what if we could unlearn it? What if we could see through the illusion, not by achieving anything or becoming someone different, but simply by recognizing what's already true? What was Watts pointing to? He was inviting us to notice that the boundary between self and world is permeable, fictional, that we are not separate from nature but a part of nature, not separate from the universe but a process of the universe. Your very existence depends on countless factors beyond your control, the sun providing energy, the earth providing substance, the atmosphere providing breath, the vast evolutionary history that led to this moment, the intricate web of life that sustains you. You didn't create yourself. You didn't choose to be born. You don't consciously regulate your heartbeat or digest your food or fight off infections. These things happen. They are done by the same intelligence that grows the grass and revolves the planets. And that intelligence is not separate from you. It is you. The deeper you, the you beneath the surface narrative. Watts loved to point out that we say, I came into this world, but this implies we were somehow outside it before, that we're foreigners, strangers, visitors. But we didn't come into this world, we came out of it. Like apples come out of apple trees, we are something the earth is doing, the universe is doing, right here, right now. And when this is felt, really felt, not just thought about but experienced in the body, there's a profound relaxation, a coming home. The universe is not indifferent to you. It couldn't be. You are the universe in this particular form, having this particular experience. Rest in this understanding now. Let it support you, like water supports a floating leaf, effortlessly, naturally, as we drift deeper into these gentle truths. So why does this illusion persist? Why do we continue to feel separate, even when intellectually we might understand otherwise? Watts would say it's because the illusion is useful, practical, necessary, even for navigating everyday life. If we couldn't distinguish between self and other, between our body and the environment, we couldn't function. We need the conventional self, the practical identity, the name and personality, for all the ordinary activities of living. The problem arises when we take this convention, this useful fiction, to be the ultimate reality, when we forget that it's a role we're playing, a mask we're wearing. In ancient Greek theater, actors wore masks called personas, and this is where we get our word person. Your personality, your personal identity is a persona, a mask, a character you're performing. It's real in one sense, the sense that the performance is real. But it's not the fundamental reality, not what you truly are. Beneath the mask is something vast, something that cannot be named or grasped, the pure awareness in which all experience arises. Some call it consciousness, some call it the ground of being. Watts sometimes called it the eternal now, the ever-present moment in which all of life unfolds. And this is not yours. It's not a possession of the separate self. Rather, the separate self is an appearance within it, a ripple on its surface. You are not in consciousness. Consciousness is what you are. The separate self, the I thought, appears within consciousness like a character in a dream. It feels solid, convincing, important, but when examined closely, it's elusive, transparent, like trying to grasp water. Where is the self right now if you look for it? Not in your thoughts, because thoughts come and go, and you remain aware of them. Not in your feelings, because feelings arise and pass and you observe them. Not in your body, because the body changes constantly, cells dying and being reborn, and yet something in you recognizes the body as yours. So what is this awareness that knows all these things? Can it be found? Can it be seen? No, because it's not an object, it's the subject, the space in which all objects appear. And here's the beautiful paradox that Watts loved to explore. This awareness, this consciousness, is not confined to your individual body-mind. It's universal. Everywhere there is awareness, everywhere there is experiencing, it's the same awareness, the same experiencing, appearing through different forms, different perspectives, like the light of a single lamp shining through many different colored windows. The colors are different, yes, the pattern's unique. But the light itself is one. And when this is truly seen, when it's not just an idea but a living realization, the sense of isolation falls away. There's still the individual perspective, still the particular character you're playing in the drama of life, but it's held more lightly, more playfully. There's less fear, because what is there to fear? You are not a separate fragment that can be destroyed. You are the whole, temporarily appearing as this particular part. And when this part dissolves, as all parts eventually do, the whole remains. You are the ocean pretending to be a wave, and when the wave subsides, the ocean doesn't die. It simply becomes another wave, another form, another dance of existence. Let this truth settle into your awareness now, not as something to believe, but as something to feel, to sense, to rest in. Feel the boundaries softening, the edges blurring, the separate self beginning to dissolve like mist in morning sun. And know that in this dissolution there is no loss, only a return, a remembering, a coming home. And so as we allow these insights to sink deeper, we begin to understand the nature of our suffering, the root of our alienation. Watts saw clearly that when we believe ourselves to be separate, isolated selves in a vast and different universe, we inevitably experience anxiety, a fundamental insecurity about our existence, because if I am truly separate, then I am vulnerable, alone. The separate self must constantly strive, must achieve, must prove its worth, must grasp at pleasure and push away pain, must accumulate possessions and accomplishments, to shore up its existence, to convince itself that it matters, that it's real, solid, permanent. But nothing can ultimately satisfy this separate self because it's trying to make real something that's fundamentally fictional. It's like trying to find the actual person inside a television. You can take apart the television, examine every circuit and component, but you'll never find the person because the person is an appearance, a pattern of light, not a solid entity. And the separate self is like this, a pattern, a process, a verb pretending to be a noun. Watts often said that instead of asking, "Who am I?" we might better ask, "What am I doing?" Because what we call the self is not a thing, but an activity. The activity of consciousness experiencing itself through this particular form in this particular moment. And when we see this, really see it, there's a profound relief, a letting go. We stop trying to make life conform to the separate self's demands, stop trying to control everything, stop resisting the flow of experience. We begin to relax into reality as it is, to participate in life rather than feeling like isolated observers of it. The division between self and world, between inside and outside, begins to dissolve. And we discover that we are not alienated from nature, from life, from the universe. We are nature, we are life, we are the universe, temporarily appearing in this form, having this experience. This doesn't mean we lose our individuality, our unique perspective. Rather, the individuality is seen in its proper context as a beautiful, temporary expression of the whole. Like a particular note in an infinite symphony, the note is real, distinct, important to the melody, but it's not separate from the music. It is the music, in that moment, in that form. And when the note ends, the music continues. The silence that follows is part of the music too. All of it flowing together, all of it one seamless whole. Can you feel this now? Can you sense the truth of it? Not in your thinking mind, but deeper. In your direct experience. The awareness that is reading these words, hearing this voice, that awareness is not separate from the awareness in the tree outside your window or the awareness in another person across the world. It's all one awareness, one consciousness, one life experiencing itself through infinite forms. And in this recognition, this remembering, there is peace. There is the end of the desperate struggle to be someone, to become something, to achieve security in an insecure world. Because you are not separate from the world, you are the world. And the world is taking care of you as naturally and inevitably as your body digests your food or your heart beats in your chest. The same intelligence that guides the planets in their orbits is guiding your life, because that intelligence is your deepest nature. And so we rest here in this understanding, this gentle recognition, letting the illusion of separation dissolve like sugar dissolving in water, sweetening everything, transforming everything until there is no self and other, no inside and outside, only this eternal moment, this infinite presence, this vast aware, luminous emptiness in which all experience arises, dances, and returns to stillness. Let yourself dissolve now. Let the boundaries fade. Let the separate self release its grip and simply rest in what you are, in what you've always been, whole, complete, home. And so we begin to see how these insights, these whispers of truth that Alan Watts carried across oceans and decades, did not originate with him alone, but flow from ancient springs, from wellsprings of wisdom that have nourished seekers for thousands of years. From the misty mountains of China, where Taoist sages watched water flow around stones, learning the secret of effortless action. From the quiet meditation halls of Japan, where Zen masters sat in stillness until the separation between sitter and sitting dissolved completely. And from the vast philosophical traditions of India, where seers proclaimed that the self within and the infinite without are one and the same. These traditions, these rivers of understanding, all flow toward the same ocean, all point to the same moon, all sing the same ancient song, the song of interconnection, of wholeness, of the great undivided reality that we are. Let us walk now slowly, gently, through these gardens of Eastern wisdom, not to accumulate knowledge, but to remember what we have forgotten, to see what has always been here, waiting patiently for our return. We begin with Zen, that most paradoxical of traditions, that most direct of paths, Zen, which means meditation, which means simply sitting, simply being, without ornament, without elaboration. The Zen masters whom Watts studied so deeply, they spoke in riddles and koans, not to confuse, but to short-circuit the thinking mind, to stop the endless chatter of concepts and reveal the living reality beneath. When a student asked the master, "What is Buddha?" the master might reply, 3 pounds of flax, or the cypress tree in the garden. These answers seem nonsensical until you understand they are pointing beyond words, beyond concepts, to the immediate, vivid, undeniable presence of this moment, just as it is. Zen teaches spontaneity, not the forced spontaneity of trying to be free, but the natural spontaneity of a bird in flight, of a flower opening to sunlight, of laughter that arises without calculation. This is the spontaneity that emerges when we stop trying to control, stop trying to be someone, and simply allow life to live itself through us. The Zen masters discovered something remarkable, something that changes everything once you truly see it. They discovered that the observer and the observed are not two separate things. When you sit in meditation, watching your breath, watching your thoughts, who is watching? You might say, "I am watching." But who is this I? If you look for it, really look, you cannot find it. There is seeing, but no separate seer. There is thinking, but no separate thinker. There is simply awareness arising, moment by moment, without center, without edge. This is what the Zen teachers mean when they speak of no self, not that you don't exist, but that you don't exist in the way you thought you did. You are not a separate witness standing apart from life. You are the happening itself, the flowing, the dancing, the eternal now expressing itself. And this realization, this seeing through the illusion, doesn't come from thinking about it. It comes from sitting, breathing, letting go, again and again, until the barriers dissolve, and what remains is simply this, just this. The sound of rain, the feeling of breath, the vast spaciousness in which everything appears. Watts loved to tell the story of a student who came to a Zen master seeking enlightenment. The master asked, "Have you eaten your breakfast?" "Yes," replied the student. "Then wash your bowl," said the master. And in that moment, if the student was ready, he might have seen it, that enlightenment is not somewhere else, not in some future attainment, but here, in the simple act of washing a bowl, in the warmth of water, the smooth curve of ceramic, the complete presence in this ordinary, extraordinary moment. This is Zen, this direct pointing, this invitation to wake up, not to some mystical state, but to the reality that has always been here. Closer than your own breath, more intimate than your heartbeat, the reality of life living itself right now. From the meditation halls of Zen, we drift now, like leaves on a gentle stream, toward the misty valleys of ancient China, where Taoism was born. Taoism, the philosophy of the way, the teaching of flowing with life rather than against it. The Tao Te Ching, that mysterious little book written by the sage Lao Tzu, speaks of the Tao, the way, the nameless source from which all things arise. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, it begins, pointing immediately beyond words, beyond concepts, to the living reality that cannot be captured, only lived, only embodied. Watts was deeply enchanted by Taoist wisdom, by its humor, its naturalness, its profound simplicity. The Taoists observed nature carefully, watching water flow downward, always seeking the lowest place, yet carving through stone. They watched trees bending in wind rather than resisting, and surviving the storm because of their flexibility. They watched the seasons turning, each in its time, without forcing, without hurrying. And from these observations, they developed the principle of Wu Wei, often translated as non-doing or effortless action. Wu Wei doesn't mean doing nothing, lying in bed all day. It means acting in harmony with the natural flow of things, like a skilled sailor who doesn't fight the wind, but adjusts the sails. Working with the forces at play. When you practice Wu Wei, you stop trying to force life into your preferred shapes. Stop exhausting yourself, swimming upstream. Instead, you feel for the current. You sense the way things naturally want to move, and you align yourself with that movement. You become like water, soft, yielding, yet ultimately irresistible. When you encounter an obstacle, you don't crash against it. You flow around it. You wait. you find the path of least resistance. This is not weakness. The Taoists understood. This is the deepest strength, the strength of nature itself, of grass pushing through concrete, of rivers carving canyons, of the slow, persistent power of working with rather than against, the fundamental patterns of reality. The Taoist sages spoke often of returning to the source, returning to simplicity, returning to the natural state before social conditioning, before the accumulation of false ideas about who we should be. They called this natural state uncarved wood, the simple authenticity of being, before we are shaped and carved and polished into something we're not. A child laughs without asking permission, cries without shame, exists without pretense. This is the Taoist ideal. Not childishness, but childlikeness. The recovery of natural spontaneity, of genuine response, of life flowing through us without the interference, of self-consciousness, of worry about what others think, of the exhausting performance of being someone. Watts would often speak of the difference between voluntary and involuntary action. You don't voluntarily beat your heart, digest your food, grow your hair. These things happen spontaneously, naturally, part of the great intelligence of your organism, of nature working through you. The Taoists invite us to see that all of life can have this quality of spontaneity when we stop interfering, stop trying so hard, stop gripping, when you trust the Tao, trust the way, trust the fundamental intelligence of reality, then life becomes less effortful, less anxious. You still act, still engage, but from a different place. Not from fear and control, but from alignment, from sensing, from responding to what each moment requires. As we rest in this understanding, we begin to see how Zen and Taoism, though different in expression, point to the same truth. Zen with its sudden illumination, its cutting through of concepts, Taoism with its gentle yielding, its flowing with nature. Both reveal that we are not separate from the life that surrounds us. We are not controllers standing outside trying to manipulate reality from a distance. We are expressions of that reality. We are the Tao, moving, breathing, dancing in human form. And when we realize this deeply, not just intellectually, but in our very being, then life becomes easier, softer, more graceful, like a dance where we stop trying to lead and discover we were always already dancing. And now we turn toward India, toward the ancient wisdom of Hinduism, toward concepts that may at first seem abstract, but which point to the most intimate truth of your existence. In the Upanishads, those ancient philosophical texts that Watts studied with such devotion, there is a teaching, a radical teaching expressed in the Sanskrit phrase tat tvam asi, which means thou art that, or more simply, you are it. What is this it? The texts call it Brahman, the ultimate reality, the ground of all being, the infinite consciousness that underlies, pervades, and transcends all existence. And within you, the texts teach is Atman, the true self, the witness consciousness, the I am that persists through all changing experiences. And here is the revolutionary insight, the teaching that transforms everything. Atman and Brahman are not two, they are one. The self within and the infinite without are the same. You are not a separate fragment, not a disconnected piece. You are, in your deepest nature, identical with the whole. The wave, the Hindu sages say, is not separate from the ocean. It appears to be for a moment, rising and falling, having its brief individual existence. But it is never, not even for an instant, separate from the ocean. It is ocean, taking the temporary form of a wave. And so are you. You are the eternal, playing at being temporal. You are the infinite, pretending to be finite. You are Brahman, experiencing itself as Atman, as this particular person, with this particular history, these particular thoughts and feelings. But beneath the particularity, the individuality, the unique expression, there is only one reality, one consciousness, one existence, appearing as many. This is not a belief to adopt, the sages teach, but a reality to realize, to make real in your direct experience. And this realization, they say, is liberation, moksha, freedom from the illusion of separation, freedom from fear, because what is there to fear when you are the totality? Freedom from the desperate quest for completion, because you are already, always have been, complete. As these three streams flow together, Zen, Taoism, Hinduism, we begin to see they are one stream, one teaching, expressed in different languages, using different metaphors, pointing always to the same moon. The separate self is an illusion. You are not separate from life. You are life. You are not in the universe. You are the universe. And this realization, this remembering, this coming home is available right now, in this breath, in this moment, in the gentle relaxation of simply being what you already are. And so we arrive at the deepest insight, the most profound understanding that Alan Watts offered to those who would listen. The nature of consciousness itself, not as something you have, not as something you possess, like an object in a container, but as what you fundamentally are. Consciousness is not a thing. It is not a possession. It is the very ground of your being, the very essence of existence itself. When you ask, "Who am I?" the one who is asking, the awareness that witnesses the question, that is consciousness. And consciousness, Watts gently reminds us, is not separate from the universe. It is the universe becoming aware of itself through you as you. In this moment, right now, there is awareness. There is knowing. You are aware of these words, aware of your breathing, aware of sensations, aware of thoughts drifting through like clouds. And this awareness, this consciousness, where does it come from? Is it truly contained within the boundaries of your skin? Or is it something far more vast, far more mysterious, far more wonderful? Watts invites us to consider that consciousness is not produced by the brain, the way a factory produces products, but rather, the brain is what consciousness looks like when viewed from the outside, when measured and observed. The brain is consciousness, doing a particular dance, playing a particular pattern, just as a wave is the ocean, dancing in a particular form. You are not a separate consciousness, looking out at a foreign universe. You are the universe, looking out through these particular eyes, experiencing itself through this particular form, this particular perspective. And just as the ocean has countless waves, each one unique, each one temporary, yet never separate from the ocean, so too does consciousness express itself in countless forms, in countless perspectives, in countless moments of awareness. You are one such expression, one such perspective, one such moment of the infinite consciousness, exploring itself, knowing itself, experiencing itself. And this, Watts would say with a gentle smile, this is not a belief to adopt, not a philosophy to memorize, but a direct recognition available right now in the simple fact of your awareness. You are aware. Therefore, consciousness is, and that consciousness is not yours alone. It is the one consciousness, the universal awareness, temporarily forgetting its infinite nature to experience the joy, the wonder, the adventure of being you, being here, being now, in this particular form, in this particular moment, in this particular expression of the eternal dance. Let yourself rest in this understanding. You are not a small, separate self, struggling to be conscious. You are consciousness itself, vast and boundless, temporarily playing at being small, temporarily dreaming, the dream of separation. And now, perhaps, beginning to remember, beginning to awaken, beginning to recognize what you have always been, what you will always be, what you are right now, in this very moment. Pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure being, wearing the temporary costume of your name, your story, your history. But beneath the costume, beyond the story, prior to all names, you are what you have always been. You are the awareness in which all experience arises. You are the consciousness that witnesses all phenomena. You are the eternal now, the timeless presence, the infinite space in which all things appear and disappear and appear again, like waves on an endless ocean, like stars in an infinite sky, like thoughts in the vast space of awareness itself. Alan Watts often spoke of a fundamental confusion, a case of mistaken identity that lies at the heart of human suffering. We have confused what we are with what we think we are. We have mistaken the vast ocean of consciousness for a single separate wave. We have forgotten that the wave and the ocean are not two things, but one thing seen from different perspectives. Imagine, if you will, a wave on the ocean rising up, curling, crashing on the shore. Now imagine that this wave somehow develops the ability to think, to reflect, to be self-aware. And in that self-awareness, the wave looks around and says, I am a wave. I am separate from all other waves. I am separate from the ocean. I must survive. I must compete with other waves. I must make my mark before I disappear. And yet, the wave's very substance, its very being, is water, ocean water. The wave has never been, for even a single moment, separate from the ocean. It is the ocean temporarily expressing itself in the form of a wave. And when the wave crashes and dissolves, the water doesn't disappear. It simply returns to its source, which it never actually left. This, Watts tells us, is our situation. We are waves in the ocean of consciousness. We arise, we express ourselves, we experience, we dissolve, but the consciousness that we are never disappears, never dies, because it was never born as something separate in the first place. You are not in consciousness like a person in a room. You are not having consciousness like having a possession. You are consciousness temporarily experiencing itself as this particular pattern, this particular form, this particular perspective. And all around you, every person you meet, every animal you see, every living thing is also consciousness. The same consciousness, looking out through different eyes, experiencing itself through different forms. When you look into another person's eyes, consciousness is looking at itself. The universe is meeting itself. Awareness is recognizing awareness, though it may not in that moment. Remember, this forgetting, Watts suggests, is intentional. It is the game that consciousness plays, the ultimate game of hide and seek. Consciousness hides from itself, pretends to be separate, limited, individual, just for the thrill, the adventure, the surprise of one day remembering, one day recognizing, one day waking up to its true nature. And that waking up, that recognition, that remembering can happen at any moment. It can happen right now in the simple observation that you are aware. You cannot doubt that awareness is present. You cannot step outside of consciousness to examine it from the outside, because you are it. Everything you have ever experienced, every sight, every sound, every sensation, every thought, every feeling, every moment has appeared in consciousness, has been known by consciousness, has been made of consciousness, like waves made of water, like rings made of gold, like space made of space itself. There is only one substance, one reality, one truth, and it is consciousness, awareness, being itself. And you are that. Not you the person, not you the story, not you the name and history, but you the awareness, you the consciousness, you the pure being that exists right now, prior to all thoughts, prior to all concepts, prior to all ideas of self and other. In the space between thoughts, in the gap between breaths, in the stillness beneath all activity, there you are, not as a thing, not as an object, but as the subject, the witness, the awareness itself, formless, boundless, eternal. And this awareness, this consciousness is not cold or empty. It is full, infinitely full, with the potential for all experience. It is warm, intimate, immediate. It is closer to you than your own breath. It is what you are, looking for itself, but never finding itself as an object, because it is the subject, the looker, the awareness that can never be seen, but is always seeing, always knowing, always being. Let yourself relax into this recognition. You are not separate from the consciousness that is reading these words, hearing these sounds. You are that consciousness. You are the awareness, the presence, the being that has always been here, that will always be here, that is here now, eternal, unchanging, at peace, beneath all the waves of experience. You are the ocean, pretending to be a wave, and now perhaps beginning to remember the truth of what you are, what you have always been, the one consciousness, the universal awareness, the infinite being experiencing itself as you. There is a question that Alan Watts loved to explore with a kind of playful curiosity, a gentle wonder. The question is, who is it that is aware? When you notice your thoughts, who is noticing? When you observe your feelings, who is observing? When you experience sensations, who is experiencing? Most of us, when asked this question, immediately answer, I am. But then, Watts would gently ask, who is this I? Can you find it? Can you locate it? Is it in your head? Is it behind your eyes? Is it in your chest? Where exactly is this I that you refer to so casually, so constantly, so confidently? And when you actually look, when you turn awareness back upon itself, searching for the one who is aware, something extraordinary happens. You cannot find it. You cannot find a separate self. You cannot locate an entity called I. What you find instead is simply awareness itself, consciousness itself, being itself, without center, without edge, without location. It is everywhere and nowhere. It is everything and nothing. It is what you are, but not as a thing, not as an object, not as an entity, but as the very space, the very openness, the very presence in which all experience unfolds. Watts often used the metaphor of the eye. The eye can see everything except itself. It can see colors, shapes, movements, the entire visible world, but it cannot see its own seeing. It cannot turn around and look at itself. In the same way, consciousness can be aware of everything, every thought, every feeling, every sensation, every perception, but it cannot be aware of itself as an object. It is not an object. It is the subject, the witness, the awareness that makes all experience possible. And this awareness, Watts would say with a gentle emphasis, is not personal. It is not yours. It is not mine. It is not contained within the boundaries of any individual. Any more than space is contained within the walls of a room. The space in this room and the space outside this room are not two different spaces. They are the same space, temporarily appearing to be divided by a wall. In the same way, the awareness in you and the awareness in every other being is not many different awarenesses. It is one awareness, one consciousness, appearing as many, experiencing itself as multitude, exploring itself through infinite perspectives. You are not a separate point of consciousness, isolated in a vast unconscious universe. You are the universe itself, conscious, aware, experiencing. You are what happens when the universe looks at itself through human eyes, thinks with human thoughts, feels with human heart. The universe is not dead matter. With consciousness somehow emerging as a strange accident, a cosmic fluke. No. Consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness is primary. Consciousness is what everything is made of, and matter, energy, space, time. These are what consciousness looks like when observed, when measured, when thought about. But prior to observation, prior to measurement, prior to thought, there is simply this presence, this awareness, this being, without name, without form, without boundary. This is what you are. This is what everything is. This is the one reality, the one truth, the one existence, appearing as many, playing as many, dancing as many, but always, only, ever one. And in this recognition, Watts suggests something profound happens. The anxiety of separation begins to ease. The fear of isolation begins to dissolve. The burden of being, a separate self, struggling against the universe, begins to lift. Because you realize that you are not separate, you are not isolated, you are not alone, you are the whole, experiencing itself as a part. You are the one, dreaming itself as many. You are the eternal, experiencing itself as temporary. And this doesn't mean that your individual life doesn't matter, that your experiences are not real, that your feelings are not valid. It means rather that your life is infinitely precious because it is the universe's life. Your experiences are deeply real because they are the universe's experiences. Your feelings are profoundly valid because they are the universe's feelings. You are how the universe lives, experiences, feels, knows, loves. You are the universe's way of being here, being now, being this. And when you rest in this understanding, when you relax into this recognition, when you surrender into this truth, there is peace, there is ease, there is a coming home to what you have always been, what you will always be, what you are right now in this eternal moment. You are the awareness. You are the consciousness. You are the presence. You are the being that has no opposite, no beginning, no end. You are what remains when everything else is stripped away. You are what was here before the first thought. You are what will be here after the last breath. You are simply timelessly, infinitely this, and this is enough. This is everything. This is home. In the gentle teachings of Alan Watts, there is a beautiful phrase that appears again and again like a bell softly ringing. You are the universe experiencing itself. You are the universe experiencing itself. Let these words settle softly into your awareness, not as information, not as philosophy, but as recognition, as remembering, as coming home. The universe is not a dead mechanical thing governed by blind laws. It is not unconscious matter, accidentally producing consciousness. It is from the very beginning, from the very ground, alive, aware, conscious, experiencing. And you are not an accident, not a random occurrence, not a cosmic mistake. You are the universe's way of knowing itself. You are existence, becoming aware of existence. You are consciousness, recognizing consciousness. You are being, experiencing being, every moment of your life. Every sensation you feel, every thought you think, every emotion you experience is the universe feeling through you, thinking through you, experiencing through you. When you taste something delicious, that is the universe tasting itself. When you see something beautiful, that is the universe seeing itself. When you feel love, that is the universe loving itself. When you rest in peace, that is the universe at peace with itself. You are not separate from this. You are not observing this from outside. You are this. You are the process, the happening, the event of consciousness exploring itself. And all around you, every person, every animal, every living thing is also this, is also the universe, is also consciousness. Each one a unique perspective, a unique expression, a unique note in the infinite symphony of existence. When Watts spoke of this, he would often remind us that this is not pantheism, not the belief that everything is God, as if God were a separate being dispersed throughout the world. This is something deeper, something more intimate. This is the recognition that there is only one reality, only one existence, only one consciousness, and it is both immanent and transcendent, both here and everywhere, both now and eternal. It is what the mystics have always known, what the sages have always taught, what the enlightened have always recognized, that separation is illusion, that boundaries are conceptual, that the self and the universe are not two but one, experienced from different angles, described in different words, and this one reality, this one existence, this one consciousness is what you are. Not the small you, not the ego you, not the name and story you, but the vast you, the infinite you, the eternal you that was never born and will never die, because it is life itself, it is being itself, it is consciousness itself, and right now in this moment you can verify this. Not by believing, not by thinking, but by simply noticing. Notice that you are aware. Notice that awareness is present. Notice that this awareness has no color, no shape, no size, no location. It is not an object. It is the space in which all objects appear. It is not a thing. It is the no thing, the nothing that is everything. It is empty yet full of all potential. It is silent, yet the source of all sound. It is still, yet the origin of all movement. And this awareness, this consciousness, this presence is not limited to your body. Your body appears in it like an image in a mirror. Your thoughts appear in it like clouds in the sky. Your feelings appear in it like waves on the ocean. But the mirror is not the image, the sky is not the cloud, the ocean is not the wave, and awareness is not the body, not the thought, not the feeling. Awareness is what you are. The body is what you appear as. Awareness is the invisible. The body is the visible. Awareness is the eternal. The body is the temporal. Awareness is the infinite. The body is the finite. And yet they are not separate. They are two aspects of the same reality, two ways of speaking about the same truth. The wave and the ocean, the form and the formless, the manifest and the unmanifest. You are both, and you are neither. You are the dance between form and emptiness, between existence and non-existence, between being and non-being. You are the eternal now, wearing the costume of time. You are the infinite here, appearing as a particular location. You are the one playing as the many. And as you rest, as you relax, as you release into this understanding, there is nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to become. You are already what you seek. You are already what you long for. You are already home. You are the universe, resting in itself. You are consciousness, at peace with itself. You are being, simply being, what it is. And this is enough. This has always been enough. This will always be enough. Simply this, simply now, simply here, simply being what you already are. The universe experiencing itself as you. And so we arrive at the deepest rest, the most profound peace, the ultimate recognition. You are not a separate self. You have never been a separate self. This separate self, this isolated I, this solitary ego has always been a thought, a concept, a story appearing in consciousness. But consciousness itself, awareness itself, being itself, has no boundaries, no edges, no separation. It is like space. Space does not end at the walls of a room. The walls appear in space, but space continues, unlimited, unbounded, infinite. In the same way, consciousness does not end at the boundaries of your skin. The body appears in consciousness, but consciousness continues, vast, boundless, eternal. You are that consciousness, you are that awareness, you are that infinite space of being in which everything appears. And as you rest in this recognition, as you relax into this truth, as you settle into this understanding, notice how it changes everything and changes nothing. The world continues exactly as it is. Sounds continue, sensations continue, breathing continues, but now there is no one separate from it all. There is simply this, the happening, the experiencing, the being, without center, without edge, without separation, just this eternal moment, this infinite now, this boundless here. And in this recognition, all seeking stops, all striving ceases, all struggle ends, because there is nowhere to go, nothing to become, no one to be other than what you already are. You are being itself, experiencing itself. You are life itself, living itself. You are the universe itself, knowing itself. And this universe, this life, this being is not cold or mechanical. It is intimate, immediate, warm. It is closer to you than your breath because it is you. You are it. There is no separation. There has never been separation. There will never be separation. Only the thought of separation, the idea of separation, the belief in separation. And now, that thought, that idea, that belief can gently dissolve like mist in the morning sun, like a wave. Returning to the ocean like a dream upon waking. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. You are not the dream. You are the awakening. You are not the thought. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear like clouds in the vast sky of consciousness. And as you rest, as you release, as you let go into this vast sky, this infinite ocean, this eternal presence, there is nothing to hold on to, nothing to grasp, nothing to control. Simply let yourself be what you already are. Let yourself rest in what has always been. Let yourself dissolve into the peace that passes understanding. The peace that is not the opposite of conflict, but the ground beneath all opposites. The peace that is your true nature, your deepest essence, your eternal home. You are consciousness, vast and boundless. You are awareness, clear and empty. You are presence, here and now. You are being, simple and complete. And as you drift into sleep, into rest, into peace, know that you are not leaving consciousness. You are consciousness, experiencing the state called sleep. You are awareness, resting. You are being, simply being what it is. And in the morning when you wake, you will still be what you have always been. Consciousness, experiencing itself, as waking, as thinking, as moving. But for now, let yourself rest. Let yourself be carried by the infinite ocean of being. Let yourself dissolve into the vast sky of awareness. Let yourself return to the source which you have never left. You are the universe resting. You are consciousness at peace. You are being, simply being. And this is enough. This has always been enough. This will always be enough. You are enough. You are whole. You are complete. You are home. Rest now in what you are. Rest now in consciousness. Rest now in being. Rest now in the infinite, eternal, peaceful ocean of existence. You are the ocean. You are the wave. You are both. You are neither. You are simply this. And this is peace. This is home. This is you. And this is you. This moment, this breath, this awareness, all that has ever been needed, all that will ever be, simply this eternal presence, this quiet knowing. Let us rest here together in these final moments, as the insights dissolve, as the boundaries fade, as everything returns to the peaceful ocean of being. Alan Watts spoke of awakening not as gaining something new, but as recognizing what has always been, the illusion of separation dissolving like morning mist, the imaginary boundary between self and world fading, softening, disappearing, and what remains is simply this: the natural state, the effortless being, the gentle truth that you were never separate at all. You are the universe, experiencing itself. You are consciousness, knowing itself. You are the eternal, playing in time. And this knowing requires no effort, no striving, no becoming. It simply is, like the ocean knowing its waves, like the sky holding its clouds, like existence breathing through every form. The separate self that seems so solid, so real, so necessary, was only ever a thought, a pattern of language, a habit of mind. And now, as you rest, that thought grows quiet, that pattern loosens, that habit releases, and what emerges is the truth that was always here, waiting beneath the surface of all seeking. You are not a thing separate from other things. You are the happening, the process, the flowing. You are the dance, not the dancer, the movement, not the mover, the living, not the liver. And in this recognition, all struggle, all resistance, all fear begins to dissolve like salt in an infinite ocean, like a wave returning home. Rest now in this knowing. Rest in the simplicity of what is. No need to understand, no need to grasp, no need to become. Just this breathing, this being, this peaceful, effortless existence. The wisdom of the East, meeting the searching of the West, meeting here in you in this moment, in this quiet dissolving like boundaries drawn in sand, washed away by the gentle tide of awareness. Alan Watts understood that we spend our lives defending borders that were never really there, building walls around something that cannot be contained, naming a process and believing it is a thing. But here in this quiet space, in this restful moment, those walls grow transparent, those borders fade, those names lose their power. And what was always flowing continues to flow. What was always whole reveals its wholeness. What was always peaceful returns to peace. The Zen masters knew, the Taoist sages understood, the Hindu teachers taught, that seeking enlightenment is like the eye trying to see itself, like a wave searching for the ocean, like a ray of sunlight looking for the sun. The search itself creates the illusion of separation. And so the deepest teaching is simply to stop, to rest, to release, to let the wave remember it is ocean, to let consciousness recognize itself, to let being be. You have heard these words, these gentle reminders, these soothing truths, and now they too can dissolve. Now the teachings can fade. Now even wisdom can release into the silence beneath all knowing, the peace beneath all understanding, the rest beneath all seeking, wu-wei, effortless action, the universe acting through you, not you doing but doing, happening naturally, like breathing, like growing, like the earth, spinning in space. No one steering, no one controlling, just the infinite dance, dancing itself. Atman and Brahman, the drop and the ocean, the self and the self, the individual consciousness and universal consciousness. But even these words, these beautiful concepts, are just fingers pointing at the moon. And now you can rest in what they point toward. You can be what they describe. Let go of understanding. Let go of grasping. Let go of even enlightenment. Just breathe. Just be. Just this moment without commentary. This awareness without division. This existence without effort. So simple, so natural, so already here. Already here, already whole, already home. These words like gentle bells ringing in the distance, growing softer, 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 until only the silence remains. And in that silence, everything and nothing the same, peaceful stillness. Alan Watts would remind us that we are not in the universe like a stranger in a strange land. We are the universe. The entire cosmos, flowering as you, the billions of years, the countless stars, the infinite space, all conspiring to be this moment of awareness, reading these words, breathing this breath, existing as you How extraordinary and yet how ordinary, how profound and yet how simple. The great mystery is not hidden in distant temples or ancient texts. It is here in the rising and falling of your breath, in the gentle awareness of being aware, in the simple fact of existence existing. And as you rest deeper and deeper into this truth, something releases, something softens, the tight grip of the ego loosens, the constant chatter of the mind quiets. The endless doing gives way to being, and being requires nothing, achieves nothing, becomes nothing. It simply is like a wave that finally recognizes it was always ocean. There is relief, there is release, there is rest, no longer fighting against the tide, no longer fearing its own dissolution. The wave rises and falls, appears and disappears, and all the while the ocean remains eternal, vast, peaceful. You are that ocean. You have always been that ocean. The sense of being a separate wave was only ever a dream, a beautiful dream, a necessary dream, but a dream nonetheless. And now the dream is ending. Now the wave is returning. Now the ocean remembers itself. So soft, this returning, so gentle, this remembering. No force, no effort, no struggle, just a gradual, easeful dissolving, like sugar in warm water, like clouds in evening sky, like thoughts in deep sleep. Everything merging, everything blending, everything returning to the source from which it never actually left. Rest in this, rest as this. You need do nothing, you need change nothing, you need understand nothing, just be as the ocean is ocean. Just exist as existence exists, just rest as peace is peaceful, completelessly, eternally here. Here in this space between waking and sleeping, between knowing and unknowing, between being someone and being no one and everyone, all at once, Alan Watts' gentle voice echoing softly, reminding us, you are it. You are the eternal energy of the universe playing at being you, and the playing is ending now. The game is winding down, the performance is taking its bow, and beneath the play, beneath the game, beneath the performance, the player, the eternal player, rests, returns to itself, remembers it was never lost, never separate, never anything but whole. The illusion was so convincing, the separate self seemed so real, the boundaries felt so solid. But now, as sleep approaches, as consciousness softens, as the mind releases its grip, we can see how transparent it all was, how dreamlike, how fluid, how free, thoughts arising like bubbles in awareness. Sensations flowing like currents in consciousness, the sense of self appearing like a reflection in the mirror of existence. And none of it separate from the awareness that knows it, none of it divided from the consciousness that is it. All of it, the one, playing, at being, many, so tired now, the playing, so ready to rest, to let go of the effort of separation, to release the tension of being someone, to dissolve into the peace of being, nothing and everything. The peace that Alan Watts spoke of, the peace that the Buddha knew, the peace that Lao Tzu embodied, the peace that is your true nature. Boundaries fading, edges softening. Where do you end and the world begin? Where does awareness end and its contents begin? Where does the ocean end and the wave begin? These questions dissolving into the answer that needs no words, the answer. Now, that simply is you are consciousness. You are the witnessing. You are the eternal now, experiencing itself as this moment, and this moment is already dissolving into the next, and the next into sleep, and sleep into dreams, and dreams into the deep, formless peace where no questions remain, where no separation exists, where only the one rests in itself. Let everything fall away now. Let all teachings, all wisdom, all understanding drift like leaves on a stream carried by the current of sleep, carried toward the ocean of rest, the infinite, eternal, peaceful ocean. And you are that ocean. You always were, always will be. The ocean dreaming. It is a wave, the wave waking to find it is ocean. And in between this gentle space, this soft transition, this peaceful letting go. Alan Watts smiling, knowing, We were never the separate self. We are the self, the one appearing as many, the eternal playing in time, the infinite dancing in form. And now the dance slows, the forms soften, the time opens into timelessness. So quiet now. So still, so peaceful. The mind releasing its questions, the heart releasing its seeking, the body releasing into rest. And what remains is simply this without name, this without boundary, this without separation, breathing, each breath like a wave, rising, falling, appearing, disappearing, and the ocean unchanged, the ocean eternal, the ocean at peace. You are that ocean, not the wave that comes and goes, but the depth that remains forever here. All the wisdom of the East, all the searching of the West, all the words of teachers and seekers leading to this silence, this stillness, this simple being, no longer trying, no longer seeking, no longer even knowing, just rest. The illusion dissolved, the boundary faded, the separate self returned to the whole, and the whole was always only ever. This awareness, this consciousness, this being. Sleep now as the ocean sleeps, complete in itself, needing nothing, becoming everything. Sleep in the knowing that you are never separate, never alone, never anything but whole. And as sleep takes you, remember or forget, it matters not. The ocean holds all waves, consciousness contains all dreams, existence embraces all being. You are held, you are home, you are peace itself, resting in the eternal now, beyond understanding, beyond separation, beyond everything, into nothing, into silence, into sleep. Deep, peaceful, eternal sleep, the ocean resting in itself, you resting in yourself, the self resting in the self, all returning, all dissolving, all at peace, forever here, forever whole, forever home. Sleep, now sleep. Thank you for listening tonight. If this story helped you drift off, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more calming stories. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you next time.